ಸಮಾರಂಭಕ್ಕೆ ತಮಗೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಸ್ವಾಗತ. I am so proud to be here because I was the host at the launch of the Precision Health Initiative on 27th May 2021, and now I am here before you as a co-host. My name is Shankar. I am a development professional focusing on design principles, public health, and impact at scale. Working for Swasti, a global public health impact organization headquartered in Namma Bangalore. This year, BBMP is co-hosting this event, and we are so happy about it.
Namaskara and good afternoon. I extend a very warm welcome to each one of you here on the occasion of the 1-year anniversary of the Precision Health Program. My name is Spriha, and I lead partnerships for the Precision Health Program at Swasti. The Precision Health Program for early warning system through wastewater surveillance is for disease outbreaks, early detection, and prevention. With all the lessons that we've learned in the last 1 year and those that we are here to share with you today, I'm extremely privileged to be joining this team in the new avatar of the platform now. I'm happy to join Shankar in anchoring this event.
As a host of this gathering, Dr. Balasundar, Chief Health Officer, Public Health, Bruhat Bengaluru Mahanagara Palike, to begin today's proceedings. Sir, may I request you to please welcome our guests gathered here.
Thank you. Ellargu namaskara. Good afternoon to everyone. BBMP's collaboration with Precision Health has completed 1 year, and we are here to celebrate the 1-year anniversary celebrations of the Precision Health Surveillance Initiative. It's a wastewater sampling surveillance initiative for early detection of different variants of COVID-19. As a Chief Health Officer of BBMP, myself and my whole team are very actively involved in implementing prevention and containment measures during the COVID pandemic. Early warning signals are useful as they can help us be prepared and implement focused measures on ground to contain the pandemic. In this regard, Precision Health as a platform is very significant as it provides early warning for disease outbreaks and has been widely used for testing wastewater for presence of SARS-CoV-2 virus. For this, I cordially welcome our Chief Commissioner, Sir Sri Tushar Girinath, Sir, on this occasion. I welcome our Special Commissioner, Health, Sri Dr. Trilok Chandra, for this auspicious occasion. I also welcome Dr. Amit Shah, Chief of Family Health, USAID, and Dr. Angela Chaudhary from Swasti. And I welcome Naga Karthik from Crypto Relief Foundation and also delegates from WHO India. I also welcome PCMH Restore Health and Wellness, Dr. R.K. Prasad, and other different people from Molecular Solutions. And I welcome R.K. Mishra, Tata Institute of Genetics and Society, and Biome Environmental Trust. I wish the team further success in all their endeavors, and I would like to hand over for the further proceedings. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Balasundar, sir, for welcoming our guests. And we really take this opportunity to thank Bruhat Bengaluru Mahanagara Palike for co-hosting this event. I hereby requesting Commissioner sir to come forward and also lightening the lamp to inaugurate this special event. I also request all the dignitaries to join this occasion to inaugurate the session.
The primary responsibility of keeping a city safe lies with its municipal government. As you can imagine, the BBMP has had a really challenging last 2 years, keeping 13 million people safe and protective in the wave of this pandemic. Their leadership in getting ahead of the pandemic rather than behind it has been the actual success of the platform. No other city in this country, nor in the region for the matter, has a daily updated dashboard and COVID Twitter updates on wastewater surveillance. It is my honor now to invite Shri Tushar Girinath, BBMP Chief Commissioner, to address the gathering. Sir.
ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ವೇದಿಕೆ ಮೇಲೆ ಇರುವ all the dignitaries on the dais, my friends and co-workers here. I am delighted to be here on your first anniversary of doing this surveillance. When the whole COVID thing started in the March, April of 2020, I was BWSSB chairman, and people used to come and say that sewage may also lead to what you call a spread of infection. That type of ignorance was there that point of time. They wanted to check up the sewage to find out whether that is growing and progressing and whether it will become a medium of transmission. After that came the surveillance point, that whether we can, from the sewage, because it is flowing from various areas at critical points, if we can take the sewage and find out the broken COVID virus protein and all that, then we will be able to determine the preponderance or prevalence of COVID in various areas, which we may have missed out because people may not tell. Those days, no, we had strong quarantine, etc. People were not, disclosing also, and there was difficulty in approaching them, and we did not have a very specific strategy of vaccinating only in this area or that area. So we had all gone through this phase, and we found that it was necessary for us to have our own predictions and our own knowledge as to which area is having more prevalence of the disease. But there was no way to do that. Then for the last 1 year, they have been able to, because that time the labs were also getting strengthened. We were fully engaged in doing the checking of the samples, COVID samples, and to determine whether it is positive, negative. A lot of work was happening then there. But as the time progressed and we made more and more sophistication, and we started now concentrating on sequencing, we had a scope to divert some resources on this surveillance, which is very important thing. If this is done properly, we get early signs and we can do some sort of containment strategy properly, and we can have a proper communication to the people around that area that it is in their interest to take precautions, etc. So it is very, very important that we keep our surveillance system up and running, not only for this disease, but for many, many diseases. And I read some novel, that is Robin Cook or somebody who is keeps on writing on such type of material, and the doctors and related pandemic, endemic, etc. In one of his novels, he had written that rats were dying, and that was found out somewhere. And then they traced that somewhere some lab is there which is producing something which is about to release some gas in the in atmosphere, and there was supposed to be some terrorist attack. So he writes somewhere that it is very important to look into this science in the drains and sewage and all these places. So because that is the place where everything ultimately, the biota in a higher concentration is coming, and all sorts of pathogens, etc. will be there. So if you can see the differentials there, then you can make out what is happening. And there is a lot of life dependent upon sewage, both animal and plant. So if you keep on concentrating on that itself, you will be able to predict that something wrong is going to happen. So it is very important that these small things are very important tools for us in detecting So far as public health is concerned, in detecting new pathogens, spread of new disease, and even the chemicals, and maybe some sort of terrorist attack based on chemicals or gases or a number of things, traces of explosives. So let us build up on this, and anyway, COVID is with various mutations, etc., is going to be with us. So we have to keep on having new strategies of detecting the newer strains, etc. But it is very important that a new beginning is made in detecting various type of pathogens, etc., from our water system, from our systems of sewage, and also maybe air. Anyway, the air, we keep on doing a lot of assaying of air. That is also a good point to start, but it is difficult. Here it becomes concentrated. We have very people behavior linked type of thing, because waste and liquid or solid both are indicator of a person's behavior in the house. So it's very important that we concentrate on this. I am happy to be here, and it would be interesting how the doctors share their experience in this platform, and we learn from this and take it forward. Due to pressure of time, I will not be able to be with you for longer, so I will take your permission to leave. But I wish all the best to all of you and all your future endeavors, and thanks for doing this wonderful work. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your words of encouragement, sir. We'll just take 2 minutes more of yours. We have a playbook to launch with you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now so excited to share our learnings and lessons from the last 1 year. The Environmental Surveillance for COVID-19 Playbook is our combined labor of hard work, put together as a step-by-step guide to conduct citywide wastewater surveillance for SARS-CoV-2. We hope that this playbook helps organizations set up and implement the wastewater surveillance system for SARS-CoV-2 virus detection in partnership with their own local governments and other partners. During the panel discussion later on today, we'll delve more into the playbook, but for now, may I please request Sir and other dignitaries to launch the playbook. May I please request everyone to join our audience. We now have a video we want to show you, so you'll have a better view from down there. You all must be curious as to what the playbook is all about. We now have a video that showcases just that.
This is the Environmental Surveillance for COVID-19 Playbook, a step-by-step guide to conduct citywide wastewater surveillance for COVID-19. This playbook is to help organizations set up and implement the wastewater surveillance system for COVID-19 virus detection in partnership with local government and other partners. It structures how early warning systems of sewage surveillance can be set up in locations that have sewage connections, open surface and underground drains, and centralized sewage systems. The playbook outlines the detailed steps required to initiate and conduct wastewater surveillance in any given city, and is based on the critical learnings on environment surveillance surfacing from the Precision Health Program. The Precision Health Program, that completed 1 year on the 27th of May 2022, responded to the need of the hour. where Bruhat Bengaluru Mahanagara Palike took precision health to scale across all 198 wards in the city, making it the first city-wide environmental surveillance initiative for COVID-19 in South Asia. Without a robust surveillance system, public health response is largely reactive and not preventive and proactive. This leads to inefficient clogged supply chains at its least and lives lost at its worst. No one is safe till everyone is safe. The playbook articulates and addresses this problem statement, or in the word of plays, the plot, and breaks down the how and why for each step. It traces the 4 P's: plot, purpose, people, and places, and spans 3 acts: planning, implementation, and evaluation, to share ground learnings, experiences, and takeaways. The 3 acts and 4 scenes of the Environmental Surveillance for COVID-19 playbook are: Act 1, Scene 1, Planning; Act 2, Scene 2, Setup; Act 2, Implementation; Act 3, Evaluation. The section on stage direction covers the media policy, introduces the Precision Health dashboard, and shares limitations and challenges. The pull-out pages are the standard operating procedures that cover sample collection and lab processes. The annex provides a range of tools and notes that cover checklists, forms, using tech, and training documents. We hope that this playbook informs and inspires other cities to take up environmental surveillance.
Now, in my experience of having worked in the development sector, it is rare to come across a leader as witty, charming, and brilliant as Dr. Angela Chaudhary has been. In her, we have an illuminary who has been pivotal in conceptualizing and leading the precision health platform from the forefront. Ever an inspiration and a motivator, we are truly fortunate to have had the opportunity to learn from a stalwart like her, who possesses over 2 decades of experience in health equity and health system strengthening in over 25 countries. Angela, the stage is yours.
So since that's a really tough act to follow, witty, charming, and all of those adjectives, I'd like actually the Special Commissioner Health to take this slot, and I'll go after you. Thank you.
Okay, it is now my honor to invite Shri Trilok Chandra, Honorable Special Commissioner BBMP, to address the gathering.
Ellargu namaskara. Good afternoon, everybody. It's my proud privilege to be part of this first year anniversary of precision healthcare environmental surveillance, which is being carried out in BBMP area for the last 1 year. I think one of the pioneering initiatives and the continuous involvement and commitment shown by all the partners involved in this is truly commendable. I think we are the first municipality in India which is who's doing it on a regular basis and utilizing the results in policy formulation, as well as keeping our ears to the ground and taking the learnings from that. Starting from surveillance from the STPs, we have come a long way forward. Through regular interactions, we have been able to motivate the teams to go down to the ward level, which is, I think, truly commendable. I'd congratulate all the team members for their commitment towards not a very glamorous thing to do at the ward level. So having said that, we have had a very key learnings from that. It has more or less correlated with our testing which is being done, so which not only validates the results and also as a true indicator of what is going on. And in the latest discussion what we had, I think going forward we have more challenges which are coming our way along with COVID, like we had a few cases of acute GE being reported, and also the periodical instances of vector-borne diseases. I think that is a way forward. So I'd requested the team to focus on dengue and other such instances, so which will give us a better heads up as to how we are dealing with public health emergencies in a city like Bangalore. So I think it's a long-term investment. It's a continuous process, as all doctors would understand. The primary prevention is the key in the epidemiological triad. So I think it's a very crucial tool, in a good tool to have in our armory to be ahead of the curve. So once again, congratulations to the entire team for having made it so far. I think with generous funding from the various partners who are here, I'm sure it would be a path-setting trend for not only India but also across the world. So thank you for having me over here. Once again, congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for giving a keynote address. It's really honor to have you, and also it's a great opportunity to work with BBMP for the leadership and also vision that the team demonstrated. Thank you so much once again. It's my pleasure to invite Angela for the next session.
Thanks, Shankar. My job was to set the context and a brief history and what Precision Platform is about, but you all already know that. So I'm going to skip to some of the parts that that may be relevant as we move forward. But just to start off, to say that I never really imagined that we would be in this beautiful hall, town hall, which was made in the 1930s. This is indeed a historic moment for some of us who got around and said, let's experiment and see whether we can find viruses in sewage. And we really never thought that the government will say, hey, we would like to co-host this anniversary event with you, and we would like for it to be in the town hall. This wasn't our idea. And so I'm so fortunate and happy to be here. I've been living here since 1989. I left many times, then I came back in 2004, wanting to do something significant in public health. And in my 20 years experience, I never had a challenge like COVID. And despite the deep personal losses that all of us have faced, I feel fortunate to have learned and be here at this moment. So what happened? Back in 2020, we knew that COVID was going to hit far, hit wide, and hit deep. And who were they going to hit the most? They were going to hit the vulnerable communities the most, who had every opportunity, who in this situation would have lost their livelihoods and worse off their lives. And while everyone was doing their best to get testing and access to the last mile, there was really not a last mile access, and there were severe constraints on the health system. When we saw the article in Netherlands that said, hey, we can actually track sewage in drains, we thought, will it be possible for a system like that in Bangalore? Because Bangalore has sewage system, of course, but it also has a lot of open drains. And could we make it a success in Bangalore? If it's a success in Bangalore, then it can work in many cities with similar resource constraints. So I won't really cut to a very interesting story that Varsha has, but cut to the chase, we found out, yes, it is possible. And then it was possible to scale. And most importantly, if you have been following the COVID BBMP 19 updates, you will see that the sewage surveillance updates are also communicated to the public openly. We've had at least 4 signals of early warning thus far, and it's really just not a silver bullet for those of you who are unfamiliar with environmental surveillance. It is a validating tool, and it's an additional complementary tool to the existing surveillance system that the government has. And yes, we second-guessed ourselves, just like every other sewage surveillance in the world, because it was new. Of course, in India, we've had polio, but with SARS-CoV-2, this was our first time. And the good thing is, I was just in London, I think it was earlier this month, where the world's wastewater surveillance experts had gathered. And when Farah is sitting in the audience, and when Farah and I made our presentation, we knew we had cracked it. We are among the best in the world. In fact, we were more advanced than some of the so-called advanced countries. And you know why this is possible? Take a second to look around you. We have the best and brightest and smartest of minds sitting right here in Bangalore city. We were the only program that was driven completely locally. No foreigners. We were asked many times, who are your partners? We said, look at all these logos, these are our partners. And then my colleague says, I think they're looking for a foreign university or an agency. So Bangaloreans, please feel very proud. Now, the reason that a complex machinery was like this up and running is because of a diverse set of actors, and that's why you have so many chairs around you. We have a fairly large panel. Because people had to work together closely, crossing institutional and sectoral boundaries. And these are boundaries that have prevented us from collaborating before, but COVID changed all of that. Members included government, private sector, academia, social enterprises, not-for-profits. They were powered and supported by strategic advisors, not just from Bangalore, but also in the country and outside the country. And the people that made it happen faced deep personal losses during this time, including losing loved ones like spouses and parents. But not a single person gave up. This success is dedicated to you. I hope you enjoy today's events, as it is designed as a summary of lessons that we have painfully and joyfully learned over the year. But before I leave, I'll put on my teacher mode, because I'd like to leave my fellow scientists. 80-90% of this room I can see are filled with scientists, so I'd leave you with one lesson. This I arrived with a lot of pain, but I cherish very deeply. You think if you want people to act on something, you have to use science to get the right knowledge, right? Because that's how science works. Yeah. But surprisingly and disappointingly, it is not. There is a mismatch between what science has to offer and what decision makers need. So the problem is not really the science. In fact, that's the easier problem to match. But and the issue is not to continue to do the wrong things. What do we keep doing? We re-jargonize to the point of specificity and confuse everybody around us. Or we have flashy graphs to say, hey, this is what I'm saying, and I'm saying it more and more. Or we catastrophize the data. We are going to die tomorrow, listen to this data. But that's not it. Solve for the communication problem, right? Administrators have the responsibility to solve at scale. So let's try a different approach. The problem isn't communicating the science. If you solve for the communication and match expectations, you have yourself a winning proposition. I've learned this painfully, so I have this to offer to you. This is indeed a moment of pride for scientists, administrators, managers, entrepreneurs, innovators, from molecular biologists to genomic scientists to virologists, data scientists, communication, public policy, philanthropists, environmentalists, economists, and clinicians. I think I've pretty much mapped most of you here. And I'd like to thank my partners, especially SCOLD, USAID, and Crypto Relief Foundation, and acknowledge the leadership by the administration in spearheading the innovation and showcasing its leadership in health. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. This would not have been possible without your vision and determined leadership. Thank you.
Angela's partners in crime, Dr. Varsha Sridhar, Director and Co-founder of Molecular Solutions, Care Health, MSCH, an advanced diagnostic company with a motto of access to all. Dr. Varsha is a molecular biologist, entrepreneur, and innovator. In the last 1 year, Dr. Varsha and her team played a crucial role in supporting the execution of all lab-related operations imperative for testing wastewater samples. Dr. Varsha, over to you.
Thank you, Shankar. Thank you, Angela, also, for saying such nice things about all of us being very smart in this room, because I'll tell you a story which will tell you how not smart many of us were. So what Angela did not talk about in her introduction was how we actually got started, and that was not 1 year ago, that was more than 2 years ago. And it started in like the lockdown, the first lockdown, when many of us did not really know what we had to do other than stay at home and try to manage cooking and kids and things like that. And so many of these late night discussions started then. And this was with a group of researchers in India and in the US. And it would all start at around 10 p.m. and go on till about 2 a.m. And these discussions formed the basis of the why. Why would anybody look for new ways to track COVID? Why weren't regular systems of disease surveillance sufficient? What would they be missing? Why would it be so expensive to track any variants that came about? And how do you ensure that you are able to capture at least most of the variants that are circulating in a city? And these were the questions that kind of we would start talking about it in almost like a theoretical way. And wastewater surveillance at this time was the theoretical alternative to answer these questions. And we had many discussions about the waterways in a city, outside a city. How does water move in and out? What effect does water have on the survival of viruses in general? And this is something that Shri Tushar as well had brought up, saying at that time we didn't really know if the virus could survive in water or not. How much virus does feces contain? And how long does the virus last? And so on. To me personally, all this theory didn't really start making sense or seeming real until one day my lab manager, Purva, who's sitting right there, and I decided, you know what, enough of this theory, let's just do something. So we threw a plastic bottle into the Vrishabhavati river, which runs right behind our lab. And it's mostly a sewage. It's less of a river, more of an open drain, as most of you know. And this is where I said all that stuff about Angela talking about how smart we were really kind of did not play out, because neither of us realized that plastic bottles don't sink. It took us like 3 tries to figure out how do you get the bottle to go inside the water to capture the water. So like, oh yeah, dang, we didn't think about this. So anyway, we collected the water, we extracted the RNA. And those days, while there were TrueNat and all that stuff, we didn't actually have access to SARS-CoV-2 specific chips. We only had access to beta-CoV chips. So many of you who were in the testing 2 years ago might have realized that we were not actually looking for SARS-CoV-2 early on. We were only looking for like coronavirus family viruses in general. So we tested for beta-CoV and it came back positive. And we were like, ooh, that's kind of exciting. So this kind of kickstarted our whole journey in the field because it suddenly made it less theoretical and more practical. In the months that ensued, we have found out the following. A, the source of wastewater actually matters. For all of us who are not in the field, wastewater is just wastewater. It's like, yeah, whatever, some shakada tanni, as they call it in Tamil. But it matters whether you're doing it in open drains or in sewage treatment plants, STPs. And each has its pros and cons. And the implications of them differ quite a lot, especially when you're trying to analyze what those signals are saying. Wastewater surveillance, regardless of whether it's open drain, STP, manhole, whatever, for COVID, turns out it's actually a very clear, parallel and independent indicator of COVID in a city. And its trends are almost exactly the same as community TPR trends. In some cases, wastewater surveillance can be a lead indicator, saying that it can be an early indicator of infection in a particular area, but we have not seen this in the entire city so far. We've only seen it in certain places, and we don't know what those places are. Cost-wise, wastewater surveillance is significantly cheaper for a city to invest in. We spent the same amount of money of 1 year testing of wastewater as the city currently does in 1 week. Of course, the kinds of data that you can get are very different, but it tells you trends, which are very similar. Genomic surveillance of SARS-CoV-2 in wastewater is a much more effective means of finding out all the circulating variants in a particular city. However, it cannot correlate with clinical history of the patients, as we can imagine. I think there are really 2 specific reasons why the Bangalore program has been successful to an extent which is far more than the programs in other parts of the world. One is the research and biotech hub that Bangalore is. Let me highlight the role of the Bangalore's biotech industry first and how they have played a role in the success of this program. I've already mentioned that we used TrueNat initially for the first ever test that we did. And TrueNat MolBio is a Bangalore-based company based out of Rajajanagar. I reached out to the CEO, Dr. Chandrasekhar Nair, and told him about, hey, I know you've been doing this for clinical samples, but do you know you can also use your chips for wastewater? And he got very excited. He was like, oh, really, Varsha? Let me now send you whatever chips we have for SARS-CoV-2 as well. So as soon as the SARS-CoV-2 chips were available in his lab, he sent those to us, and we were able to test it out on wastewater RNA as well. Over time, we switched out from TrueNat to RT-PCR as our own lab's capacity and expertise evolved. In RT-PCR kits, again, we tried many. And because of the willingness of the few companies to help us think through the process, we were able to rapidly switch to a quantitative assay. Here I need to thank Achira Labs, also Bangalore-based in JP Nagar, and their research team at GenePath, Pune, who spent a lot of time helping us think through and test various variations of kits for quantitative as well as rapid variant identification. Bangalore's research capabilities obviously need no mention. I think as people who are not absolutely part of academia or biotech, we kind of tend to take it for granted that we have IISc, NCBS, TIGS, hundreds of research labs and biotech labs in the city. So with the joining of hands of the Open Drain program and the STP surveillance driven by Drs. Farah, and Uma Krishnan, and with critical guidance from Vishwanath, who is somewhere there, maybe. The PPHAs became the only program in the world to be a coalition of various different types of wastewater surveillance. If you look at any other type of these programs in the world, they'll have mostly STPs because they're all driven by advanced countries which have STPs. Or there'll be like a few of them which show open drains because countries like ours, which is a combination of open drains and STPs, there are not that much of these programs going on. So our program actually ended up becoming the first and biggest of these coalitions of different institutes. And this is something that I truly hope to continue in the future, especially with so many other organizations joining this in Bangalore itself, whether it's IDRF or BMC. The second critical aspect of the program's success has been the leadership of the BBMP. As Shri Trilok Chandra and Shri Tushar Nath said, their guidance and their BBMP's guidance and support has been there throughout. I should especially like to thank Dr. Bhaskar and Dr. Maheshwari, as well as the COVID war team and the data analysis team. In the course of the program, we've had an opportunity to speak to multiple programs across the world, in the US, in Netherlands, different parts of India, and not a single other program has had this kind of degree of support from their local governments. In fact, the US data analyst that we spoke to said, how in the world are you able to talk to your governments? We have all these beautiful mathematical models, but nobody's listening to us. And we said, huh. So thank you so much, BBMP. And the BWSSB for allowing us permission and to allowing us to just try. And for your guidance in honing the process as to be able to get it to a level where all the questions that we kept getting asked, like how is this going to be useful? How is this, what are we going to do with this data? This really helped us hone the process. So with that, I thank you all for your listening here and your participation in making this program a success.
Thank you, Dr. Varsha, for taking us on this ride of memories of experimentations and learnings we've all been a part of. USAID India is a strong supporter of the COVID Action Collab, where the precision health was actually incubated. We are here today with the unstinting support of their entire team. It is now my privilege to introduce Dr. Amit Shah, the Deputy Director, Health Office, USAID India. Dr. Amit, please do come and share a few words on this occasion.
So Angela started out by saying that this effort was all local. There are no foreigners, but I'm a local who represents a foreign agency. So thank you for having me over here. It's a privilege. I am Dr. Amit Shah and I represent USAID. For those in the audience, I'll just have a quick 2-minute pitch on what USAID is, those who are not aware of it. USAID stands for the United States Agency of International Development. We are the official development arm of the United States government, and our partnership with the government of India is very strong. It's more than 7 decades since the time of independence. Obviously, the model of developmental assistance has evolved over the decades, and as India's own development trajectory has changed. But what is very significant to note is the partnership and the cooperation has actually strengthened since the onset of the pandemic. It has even become more strong. We were responsible for provisioning around $200 million of emergency COVID-19 response in the country. A large part of it, around $50 million, was in emergency airlifted supplies of around 7 military flights coming in, with life-saving drugs and equipment when India was grappling with the second wave in April 2021. But what is even more important is the partnership that we built with the Government of India and various state governments all over India to identify what were the critical gaps and rapidly provision it through technical assistance programs on ground. So it unprecedented at the pace at which all the partners on the ground were mobilized and were able to quickly support all the emerging gaps. So whether it was rapidly starting with PSA plants, more than 530 PSA plants were commissioned, though the funding was all there in the Government of India. A lot of funding sources were there, but what was important was partners on the ground with the technical assistance who were able to do that, or whether it was health worker capacity building, telemedicine, technology platforms, digital health. It started off with even a blended health financing platform, and so on and so forth. But the reason the work in Bangalore is very special is a very unique initiative that had already started off, and it is the COVID-19 Action Collaborative, which we felt very fortunate to partner on. When we joined the CMS group, the COVID-19 Action Collaborative, to support it, it was a nascent fledgling initiative with 100 plus organizations, and all of them were very well connected together. But then through the efforts of this team over here, it was able to scale up nationally to now encompass more than 350 plus organizations, which has benefited millions of people, vulnerable populations with high impact health interventions. And this is a very special initiative for us. And as a part of this initiative, this precision environmental health surveillance is just one of them. There is VAX now and several other initiatives that were tried out over here. But the work done in Bangalore, as Angela mentioned, it's the first ever city, not only in India, but in entire Southeast Asia, on how that citywide environmental health surveillance initiative can be conducted. So in that regard, I would just like to share a few thoughts and not take much of your time. The first one being this playbook. And knowledge dissemination is very, very important. There are so many best practices that have been tried out across India. Each week I'm traveling to a different state, meeting with different stakeholders, trying to understand what worked, what worked well, and how can that be disseminated. So such initiatives, and the playbook is a very good example. How can this toolkit be disseminated to other cities as well? So it can be beneficial for the policymakers over there. The second thing is, how do we ensure that all these different efforts, one, environmental health surveillance is a very important component, but not the only one. How can it be linked with whole genome sequencing and media scanning and zoonotic disease surveillance? All these efforts coming together in geographies. So when the policymakers are there, they truly act as integrated early warning systems. COVID is still not behind us, but how do you ensure that the infrastructure that has been created can really help us in any further future public health threats as well? So that's the second thing. Last but not the least is the COVID-19 pandemic exposed several fault lines, but definitely those have been now cognizance has been being taken at the highest levels of the government, and lot of new initiatives and budgetary announcements are being made. So how do we ensure that the efforts, because the guidelines and policies are made at the national level, but it's the work at the city level, the local work, that is where we get opportunities to test all these new models. So for instance, the Integrated Health Information Program, that is one of the flagship initiatives, which is looking at triangulating all the data integration, health information systems out there to help in early warning systems. Likewise, the government has already set up a National Public Health Observatory. So all the COVID-19 infrastructure that was created, just like Bangalore, BBMP had its own war room, at the national level, at the central ministry, there was this COVID-19 war room. Now that itself has been repurposed into a National Public Health Observatory and Emergency Operations Center. So which will serve a dual purpose, which will even help on routine essential health services, and during any further future pandemic or any public health threat will actually help on those early warning systems as well. So how do we ensure those initiatives are also rolled out at the local level, and the work that we are doing over here strengthens those. I would rest at that, but it's definitely a pleasure and privilege to be here in Bangalore and be here with you all. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Amit Shah, for joining us on this special occasion. It's a great opportunity for us to work with you. Thank you so much for your support for COVID Action Collaborative to support most vulnerable communities who are affected with COVID. Thank you so much.
The Crypto Relief Foundation is one of our newest members to join the Precision Health family. We are excited to have them on board to support in expanding our work further. We will have with us Mr. Sandeep Nailwal, the owner and founder of Crypto Relief Foundation, who will join us virtually from Dubai. Can the team confirm if he is ready to speak with us? If not, then we'll also have with us Mr. Naga Karthik from Crypto Relief Foundation. Okay. Maybe after this, Naga. Okay, let's hear from Sandeep. Naga Karthik, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I think while Sandeep joins, I'll probably start off. So I think Crypto Relief also is about a year old. We're a bunch of people who I think somehow got to know each other and got together during the second wave. I think during the time where everybody was trying to do what they can, and so Sandeep, who is the founder of Polygon, which is one of the largest blockchain projects in the world, put out a tweet saying that it went something like, I can't take this sitting down. I'd like the crypto community to come in and help for what's happening in India. And then that snowballed into I think what is now made us one of the largest public health philanthropic organizations for the country. So I think it's a responsibility that we're learning how to deal with. We take this with a lot of humility, but we currently see ourselves as custodians of this fund. We are a bunch of volunteers fully dedicated to try and make this happen. We are in the process of setting up systems. We want to be different as a funder. We want to try and be agile. We want to try and do things that I would say some of the funders have not done so far. And that's the role we see ourselves playing. So in the last year, we've had opportunities to support, for example, the central government in procurement of vaccine syringes, fairly large-scale vaccination programs, including VaxNow, and a bunch of efforts related to oxygen concentrators and cylinders. But I think what caught our attention with Dr. Angela's work and Precision Health is something that I personally believe in, that the work that the civil society or the civil sector can do, while it works in tandem with governments, because governments can work at scale, but they find it difficult to innovate. And whereas we on the other side have the advantage that we can innovate and try to work at a smaller scale. And I think this is what spoke to us about the initiative. As a fund, we also stand for things related to open data, transparency. Everything related to the work that we have done is out in the public domain on our websites. And again, with this project as well, that's something that spoke to us. And also the direction in which the playbook has come out, in which we're trying to get more and more cities to take this up. I think all of this together resulted in us as a group, I think, committing and wanting to work with the Precision Health team to try and help accelerate what has happened in Bangalore, to try and take it to, I think if I get the numbers right, 8 more cities this year. And then with that, to try and take it to probably around 25 cities in the country. I think we also believe that while we are starting under the umbrella of COVID, the platform is currently in its most nascent stage. There is definitely a lot that we can do be it opioid use or AMR, and the goal is to actually try and bring in partners or expand the scope of what this platform can do to try and make this a very, very comprehensive early warning system. So as we sort of go ahead, I think currently as I think RFPs are out, we're looking at more cities to participate. I know sir from BBMP is left, but I think we'd also need support from the municipality to also help us, maybe reach out to other folks, also be involved in the process of the scale up. We're here to support, we're here to encourage and try and make this happen at a larger scale. Thank you so much for having us here. I'd actually like to check if Sandeep's on now.
All right. So, yeah, I think, Naga, you covered most of the, most of the things. But yeah, just like, kind of summarized thought that, as crypto relief, I think the original mandate for us was this immediate COVID relief and epidemic prevention. And, we continue to be dedicated towards that mission. We have already funded a lot of government and private projects related to early detection of, coronavirus. And we plan to include latest technology and research in these endeavors. Our multi-city initiative with Swasti will also take us a step further in making India capable of preventing epidemics in future. Many congratulations to Swasti also for their excellent work, and hope to achieve success in surveillance throughout India. I think this surveillance is, especially during the Delta wave. I think one of the biggest thing even now we feel is that if we would have been able to detect this new variant, in time, probably we would have been able to save a lot of people ahead of time and get supplies and all that. I can personally say this because I lost a very dear friend, 28-year-old, very kind of pioneering person in the blockchain space also. So I can personally relate to it, and I kind of not only congratulate but expect Swasti to keep doing this excellent work and make COVID early detection in India probably the best setup things across the world in terms of this early detection processes. So that's all from my side.
Sandeep,
thanks for taking it.
I think we can also have you on video for a few seconds. We've enabled it now.
Okay, yes. Sure. I actually came out for some meeting. I came out for some meeting only, and I was told that I need to be there. But yeah, I would be happy to take any questions. And as I already said, that this early prevention, I think Naga, you can also maybe explain more. We are already we are not leaving any stone unturned on this early detection thing. In various different, be it AI, be it the genome sampling or any other things related to that. It remains one of the key priorities for us. So happy to be here, and thanks a lot for inviting me. Any other questions, if anybody has, would love to answer. But yeah.
Thanks so much, Sandeep. It's very difficult to get hold of Sandeep, but the fact that I think he's made it, it shows how important this is to him. Like he said, everything that we want to do, we want to try and be slightly audacious, try and push the limits. And then I think with virology or with working with startups or health systems, hopefully we want to try and be more and more visible in the sector going forward. And so I think that's pretty much it from our end. Look forward to working with the Precision Health team over the next few months, years, more cities, and wherever this can go to. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sandeep. We really appreciate your presence, if only for a few minutes. And my apologies for the technical glitch, but thank you so much. And we look forward to the multi-city initiative now. As Naga said, we have launched an RFP to locate and identify suitable partners across India, and we are happy to share more on that front. So thank you, Sandeep and Naga. Moving on, Skoll Foundation, which is one of the world's first ever investors in environmental surveillance, catalyzes transformational social change by investing in champions, social entrepreneurs, and other social innovators who together advance bold and equitable solutions to the world's most pressing problems. By instilling in us, our team, the freedom and confidence to innovate, the Skoll Foundation has truly empowered us and many other initiatives like ours in the social sector. It is our honor to see Mr. Ben Pine representing the Skoll Foundation. Ben is a principal with Skoll, and he's based out of the United States. He regrets not being able to join us here, but we have this video from Ben to be played now.
Hi everyone, my name is Ben Pine and I'm here representing the Skoll Foundation today. And at the Skoll Foundation, our mission is to catalyze transformational social change by investing in, connecting, and championing social entrepreneurs and other social innovators who are working on the world's most pressing problems. So it's a real honor to be here with you today to celebrate 1 year of the Precision Health Surveillance Initiative. I think these past 2 years, just reflecting the past 2 years of the pandemic, have given us a new meaning on the words, the world's most pressing problems. The pandemic has brought really tremendous hardship to populations all around the world, with consequences that have reached far beyond the health toll of COVID-19, which by itself has been devastating. And I think it's really challenged all of us to come together to think about how to stop the pandemic, but also how to prevent such disasters from reoccurring in the future. At the Skoll Foundation, we partner with social innovators who are working on multiple parts of the health system, helping ensure people, even the most marginalized, have equitable and quality access to care, and helping governments protect communities from pandemics and disease outbreaks. And at Skoll, we believe that effective pandemic prevention and response requires this deep integration within and across health systems, really with government leadership and alongside investments in long-term solutions. And this is actually what brought us to supporting the Precision Health Project. I think it's really well known that sound surveillance systems are critical to preventing pandemics and to ensuring governments at different levels are equipped to respond to outbreaks of disease. But sometimes in resource-constrained settings and in fast-changing conditions, access to accurate and timely data on disease trends can be scarce, which makes public health decisions even more difficult than they already were. And so we were just really inspired by the Precision Health Collaborative and their effort to develop this low-cost method to originally track prevalence of COVID-19 at the community level in Bengaluru's wastewater systems. And we saw really the rigorous processes and agility that Swasti and the COVID Action Collaborative brought. We saw that alongside the leadership of the municipal corporation to try to take action and incorporate this data into their disease trends and inform their public health decisions as a result. And we saw the visibility that this could give to areas or times when individual testing was particularly difficult or unavailable or insufficient, in particular areas that concentrate on underserved and marginalized populations. And so for Skoll, supporting the Precision Health Platform was a real ideal opportunity to invest in a social innovation, but not just an innovation in a silo, one that was actually helping strengthen the overall system of Bengaluru by incorporating this sustainable environmental surveillance into the city's public health system. And so we were impressed by this highly collaborative, very entrepreneurial effort and its ability to span multiple stakeholders from public to private and academic sectors. And I think it gives an example of what a piece of a well-integrated, well-functioning, comprehensive system for disease surveillance can be, and I think starts to prove out some of the theses on how wastewater surveillance can actually complement traditional detection pathways. as an essential component of the broader system for early warning and for the tools for active outbreak monitoring. So we really can't stress enough the importance of continued partnership with governments who are the stewards of this infrastructure for public health. And we're excited to continue to support this opportunity, but also to watch for opportunities for social innovators to continue to engage with and support the leadership of governments and their own public health priorities. And so just in conclusion, I would just like to thank and congratulate all the partners who've made this possible. The Municipal Corporation of Bengaluru, the COVID Action Collaborative, Swasti, the academic and private sector partners, and everyone involved in making this a success. We are incredibly inspired by the commitment to this, and we're excited to continue to see how this innovation is used, not just for COVID-19, but also to establish the proof of concept for other pressing diseases and public health needs that we know we'll face in the future. So thank you all. Have a great rest of the event.
We had just barely spoken about this concept last year. Being a friend and also partner to the Catalyst Group and the COVID Action Collab, Ben's team worked at record speed to make this investment possible. Thank you so much, Ben, for your powerful message and support.
Yes, thank you, Skoll Foundation. I have to remark, you all have been a wonderful audience. And to treat yourself to a really interesting next segment, we have a panel discussion. The precision health story, as you may have understood a bit by now, is all about the power of collaboration. It's the story of bringing diverse players coming together, each bringing their own expertise, their own unique value that's intrinsic for the program, together contributing in building this beautiful platform. The panel that you're about to see now may be one of the largest that you've seen in terms of its size, but that's only because it goes on to re-emphasize on how none of this would have been possible without any of these multiple partners. Their contribution has been vital to the success of this 1 year.
In this next segment, we shall have a panel discussion with all our partners who made this initiative successful, which will be moderated by Dr. Ramakrishna Prasad. Dr. Ramakrishna Prasad, a certified and well-known family medicine professional. He heads PCMH Restore Health. Dr. RK has been instrumental in co-creating Precision Health Initiative. Dr. RK Prasad, we invite you to moderate the panel discussion and educate us about the significance of having the Precision Health Initiative for cities like Bangalore. Along with Dr. RK, we are pleased to invite all the panelists on the stage. Dr. Deepa Sharma, WHO India, who is joining us virtually. Dr. Bhaskar Rajkumar, Officer on Special Duty, COVID War Room, BBMP. Shri Jairam, Honorable Chairperson, BWSSP, Government of Karnataka. Mr. Vishwanath, Advisor, Bayam Environmental Trust. Miss Varsha Sridhar, Dr. Varsha Sridhar, Chief Enabling Officer, Molecular Solutions. Dr. Farah Istiaq, Principal Scientist, Tata Institute for Genetics and Society. Mr. Nitish Kumar, Data Scientist, Catalyst Group. Dr. Anjala Chaudhary, Partner and Lead, Swasti Health Catalyst. Dr. RK, over to you.
Thank you very much, Shankar. Please. So Shankar described the panel as large. It's actually going to be larger. We have two other physicians here because wastewater surveillance is really intended to be an early warning system. And who better than Dr. Nishant Hiremat, who's the head of the emergency medicine department at Bhagwan Mahavir Jain Hospital and one of the co-founders of PCMH Wellness. So he'll also be joining the panel. And Dr. B.C. Rao, one of the most senior physicians in the city, who's a doyen of family medicine and who's observed the community response from multiple viewpoints. So it's my pleasure to invite him as well onto the panel. Dr. Angela made the point of how important it is to bring multiple stakeholders together and be able to create an environment where multiple stakeholders can work conducively and collectively together. Before I start, I'll be failing in my duty if I do not specifically and particularly thank the support we've received from BBMP, including the leadership of Shri Gaurav Gupta, the former BBMP Chief Commissioner, Shri Randeep, the former Special Commissioner for Health, BBMP, and definitely Dr. Balsundar, the CHO, and Dr. Suresh, the District Surveillance Officer. We thank you all very much, sirs. I'll start the panel by asking the first question to Dr. Deepa Sharma from the WHO. Dr. Sharma, you have, from the World Health Organization, you have been following the surveillance platforms, environmental surveillance platforms. Could you please share with us some of the wisdom that has emerged over the last year as to the utility of these environmental surveillance platforms and what you see as the way ahead? Thank you. So, Dr. Deepa, Dr. Sharma, you from the WHO, you have been following these environmental surveillance platforms. Could you please enlighten us with some of the wisdom that has been gained over the last couple of years on the utility of these environmental surveillance platforms and also what you see as the way ahead?
Okay, thank you so much. First of all, I would like to say congratulations to Swasti Foundation for first year and especially Precision Health for first year anniversary for this environmental surveillance in a historical hall. So, like as per the environmental surveillance is considered, WHO, if we consider, they have a legacy of poliovirus environmental surveillance, which helped the country to eradicate the poliovirus. So, being in country, WHO since 2001 had provided the guidelines and many supportive documents which helped various partners and various scientists and researchers to go ahead, like how to do the sampling, then how to perform the testing, or how to use the different platforms. Definitely, the brain was of researcher and scientists. WHO provided the main platform or the guidelines for initiating or for exploring the environmental surveillance by the way of supportive documents. Beside that, WHO, I also want to share the experience which WHO had. Being a part of polio network, we had 8 laboratories and in entire country, and being a part of environmental surveillance doing for polio virus, WHO also initiated environmental surveillance for SARS-CoV-2 in collaboration with ICMR. So even though like different partners, different people, they are doing differently, but definitely I'm so much excited to see the what Precision Health has done in Bangalore. So it was a great excitement of the way you are providing the public health response for the government. So we also have observed that this environmental surveillance they can provide a warning signs before the actual surge in cases with any new COVID-19 wave or resurgent cases. The same has been I heard from previous researchers in this forum that they have also understood before anything comes there is an early sign. So WHO in brief I can say had helped in various agencies by providing the guidelines. So this was the part of WHO in this overall environmental surveillance. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma. The next question is to Dr. B.C. Rao. And sir, the mic is in front of you. Dr. B.C. Rao is a mentor to the Academy of Family Physicians of India, and I serve as the president of the Academy of Family Physicians of India in Karnataka. Sir, as a family physician who's practiced for over 5 decades, and as a keen observer to the response, the community response to COVID, could you please highlight some of the salient features of Bangalore's COVID response that you have noted? Thank you.
Dr. R.K., I'm glad you called me to this because I'm mentoring AFPI, and then not because of my gray hair and age. Now, last 2.5 years has been tough for the doctor community. I have been privileged to be mentoring 350 expert family physicians who form the Academy of Family Physicians of India, Karnataka branch. And also, I'm associated with Corona Trust, which runs 60 PHCs across the country. And some of the PHC doctors I'm very closely associated with because we run a fellowship program for them. And over these 2 years, my observation has been that primary care doctors, both in the government sector as well as the family physicians who are in the private sector, have done a great deal of service in promoting and preventing, I would say more preventing this illness in the community. But for these doctors, we would have had a disaster of unprecedented proportions, which has been prevented by the timely action of the primary care physicians across the Karnataka state. And in Bangalore in particular, I have come across doctors who have treated a large number of patients, and some of them have suffered serious illness. And as one of you said that you lost somebody who's very close to you, we have also have had that experience. But for their services, our hospitals would have been inundated with serious patients. Many of these patients who needed, we probably would have needed a hospitalization, have been managed by us at home. And it's been my privilege to have been with some of you. One of this is RK's group. The other is several of AFPA members who have handled thousands of cases in person and more by telemedicine. It is possible with cooperation from the community and doctors that we can handle epidemics of this proportion, more the second wave than the first wave. The third wave, we are not very sure if there is a third wave or not, but I'm pretty sure we are going to handle this third wave so much more better than the first and the second waves. I suppose that is what I wanted to say, and if you want to ask me anything else, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Rao. Wastewater surveillance was hypothesized as an early warning system. Now, whenever new infections or patterns of infections start appearing in a community, there are 3 or 4 portals where the early signals are first received. One, of course, are primary care physicians or family physicians. The second are pharmacies, because people then start buying paracetamol and antipyretics more. And the third and very critical portals to entry into a hospital is the emergency department. So Dr. Nishant Hiremat, who is the head of the emergency department at Bhagwan Mahavir Jain Hospital, how has wastewater surveillance, and you've been involved intimately in understanding the data in a real-time sense, how has this correlated and contributed to your own care and management in the emergency department?
Thank you, RK. I would say that I think when we started this wastewater surveillance, I think probably we delayed it by about 6 months. I think we had done it even before the Delta wave. I think probably it would have given us more insight into the way that we are doing it. Because I think if a patient has to throw out viruses, he may not be symptomatic, but I think virus is already there, and where we could pick these samples and probably find out that these patients who could be symptomatic thereafter, or they can cause cross-infections, could have been cordoned off or probably kept isolated, and thereby decreasing the cross-infections. And definitely I think because of the surveillance, we were able to find out when these numbers are going to rise, and or probably it is coming to an end. That is how we could predict it. Right? That could help us.
Thank you, Dr. Nishant. Next, I would like to invite comments from Dr. Varsha Sridhar. So ultimately, the reliability or the accuracy or dependability or utility of wastewater surveillance will depend on your confidence as a molecular biologist to be able to isolate and measure with a fair degree of exactness the amount of COVID virus RNA in the sewage. Can you please share with us some of the nuances involved, including some of the evolution of both innovation and understanding that happened over the course of the last year or so?
Sure, I think that's a good point. I think the first clue that we got that RNA in this wastewater could actually be A, detected, and B, correlate with the clinical picture out in the community was perhaps in September of 2020, when we could say, oh, okay, not only are we able to see wastewater and we are able to consistently detect it, but it seems to be going in parallel with the reported cases in our community, which was Sheshadripuram at that time. And then we see this again and again. When we started doing this at the end of the fag end of the Delta wave, as the community TPR went down, the wastewater also, you can see there's multiple graphs of this, which is actually maybe online, it's on the dashboard, but you can see it kind of go in parallel. So you can kind of say, okay, good. There is detectability which is consistent. There is a trend which parallels other methods of surveillance. I do have to say that in the third wave in January and February, we started seeing after like very low levels. When one day we got like every single of our sites was positive, and we were like, I'm sure this is wrong, go back and do it again. And then we got the same thing again. And that was actually our first clue that perhaps this is maybe an early indicator that there is a wave coming. And then it seemed to correlate again in the future testings from those sites as well. So I guess in conclusion, the technical aspects over here, there have been fairly standard protocols that have now been published from across the world. And there are multiple different aspects, right? There are like cheaper versions, and there are extremely fancy versions. And what we have been able to kind of convince ourselves and show systematically in data is that the cheaper versions work just as well as the fancy versions. So that's very good from a cost effectiveness point of view. And secondly, I think what we have also been able to see is that when you actually sequence the RNA, you do see there's a lot more fragmentation in wastewater samples than there is in clinical samples, but it is sufficient enough, whatever intact fragments are there are sufficient enough for you to be able to get a clear enough data. Those would be my points.
Thank you very much, Dr. Varsha. Next, my question is to Dr. Farah Ishtiaq. Farah Ishtiaq is a principal scientist at the Tata Institute of Genetics and Society. Dr. Farah, you have led the genomic sequencing effort using wastewater surveillance, wastewater samples. Could you similarly share with us some of the nuances of identifying variants of these sequences and determining whether they're variants of interest, variants of concern, and what have been some learnings along the way?
Right. So before I explain what that entails, I want to just step back and talk about what exactly genomic surveillance means.
Sure.
So when you're detecting the virus in the water, you're just looking for the presence and absence. You're basically quantifying it. You're doing modeling. But what genomic surveillance allows you to do is to actually decode the virus. What's the genetic makeup of that virus? So that will actually tell you what variant of, whether it's a variant of concern based on the mutations you see in that particular sample. Now, as we are saying this it's an early warning system. You are looking for predicting whether there is going to be next wave. The genomic surveillance is right at the heart of that. It's actually the backbone of that. That also needs to be done in the real time if you were to predict whether there is going to be a next wave, because that's where you're going to find that variant of concern or interest. So it needs to be done in real time. And that's very, very, very challenging. I will not say it in any other way, because you are getting the sample, you have to get them sequenced and analyze the data and make sure you understand those mutations. Have they been reported by WHO? Have they been labeled? Are there mutations which are significant but still have not been given any other name? I mean, that's the crux of the problem. And I feel very proud to say that even until today, I can tell you what's floating in Bangalore waters, basically. So that's all how real time we have bring ourselves. And I think that's the essence of this program. And I hope we should do that way. Yeah.
Thank you, Farah. One of the things specifically related to genomic sequencing is that obviously this is information which can be very sensitive from a public anxiety point of view. And so these conversations to determine are we truly seeing what we are seeing have been instrumental over the course of the year. So thank you very much. Next I have a question for Mr. Nitish. Now, till we did this program, I didn't realize how much mathematics and mathematical modeling would be involved in interpreting this. So Nitish, if you could share with us some of the learnings and insight as to how does the data processing and interpretation go, because you get these signals, but then there is noise and there are true signals, and one cannot cry wolf too soon, especially with the city municipality, because in a city like Bangalore, where there are close to 13 million people, decisions that BBMP takes impacts very large numbers of people. So could you throw some light on how did you process this?
Thank you. Thanks, RK. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. Differentiating signal from noise is one of the key roles, as data analysts or data scientists, which we'll have to do. So when we first started with this, I remember Sirish was the one who came to me and we discussed, okay, there is this bunch of viral loads which are coming from Open Drains, what do we do about it, and so on. And we did our secondary research, we found out what other people are doing. A lot of them were using 7-day moving averages and so on. So we started with something like that. But eventually we ended up using a statistical measure called exponential weighted moving average, which just to put it bluntly, looks at not just the current information of what I get from viral loads today, it also takes past data into consideration. So let us say because of some issues in the process or procedure, suddenly a viral load goes up, it suppresses the noise to an extent because it also looks at the past, right? So that was the first thing which we did to start off with. And at this point, I should highlight the role of Dr. Sanjay, who's sitting there, who's part of Farah's team, whose inputs and work has been extremely crucial for this. Sanjay is a PhD in math, and it was hugely important for us to have him in the team. So Sanjay and we discussed and we came up with these control limits, right? So without getting much technical, I would say we used the 2 standard deviation plus and minus as controls. So then we have a much more certainty in saying that, okay, if there is a spike or a drop or anything like that, as long as it stays within that control, we are clear. It is nothing significant at this point. The moment it crosses the threshold and it goes beyond the control, then we start taking it seriously, and then we go ahead and communicate to the department, the municipality, and so on. Even before all this, I remember sitting with Dr. Bhaskar's team, a bunch of data learners. I remember the name was Vikram, right? Vikram was there where we sit and say, okay, these are the sites which are increasing in our site. These are the sites which are showing from your surveillance. When those match, that gives us confidence as well. Despite all the statistical techniques and them showing significance, the fact that, okay, we are finding some sort of collaboration with what the BBMP is also seeing on the ground gave us a lot of confidence. So, but these are the techniques which we use to sort of differentiate signal from noise. Yeah.
Thank you, Nitish. I want to acknowledge, about 6 weeks back, we had a sense-making workshop, sense-making and microplanning workshop, and I must acknowledge the tremendous value that Shri Trilok Chandra, who's both a physician and an administrator, brought when he held us accountable to this threshold. He said, what is the threshold above which I should act? What is the threshold below which I can wait and watch? So this was really valuable. I want to acknowledge that. The next question is to Mr. Vishwanath. Vishwanath, you are an expert in the systems in wastewater systems and probably broader water systems in general. Can you share with us how does the design of a wastewater system and the other variables that change it, how does that have an influence on wastewater surveillance for an infection like COVID?
So it's quite interesting, the kind of disciplines that have to come together to try and make sense of what a pandemic means to a city or what a disease means to a city. For Bangalore, one of the unique things with the wastewater systems is that we have 33 decentralized sewage treatment plants. We pick up about 1,200 million liters per day of sewage out of what is 1,440 million liters of sewage being generated in the city. These are estimates, and they are not very accurate numbers. These are estimates. But in addition, we have about 21 sewage treatment plants set up by the BBMP near lakes. And there are more than 3,000 sewage treatment plants which are there in apartments and gated communities, right? So that's a very distributed sewage collection. In addition to that, there's untreated sewage flowing in the stormwater drains, obviously. So it's a complex interface. So if we want to be reliable with our testing, be statistically significant, we have to make sure where is which sewage going, right? And then pick the right samples. So that's a critical challenge that we were able to address in this project. The other challenge in the Bangalore context is that wastewater does not simply end at the sewage treatment plant. For us, for the BBMP and for the health folks, the concern is what's happening to the population which is sending in the sewage. But for the sanitation engineers, the concern is the sewage treatment plant workers also. They're critical frontline workers, and if the virus is aerosolizing, it is infectious at the sewage treatment plant, which was the fear in March and April of 2020, because there was no science to back what was happening. Then it becomes crucial as to how do you manage the sewage treatment plants themselves, and what will happen then if sewage treatment plants don't function. So there's a criticality there. Luckily for us, the virus was not found to be infectious at the sewage treatment plant level, so therefore there was very less risk there. Further, what happens is that Bangalore runs one of the largest transfer of treated wastewater for agricultural reuse. So this wastewater is being shipped to the districts of Kolar, Chikballapur, Bangalore Rural, and so on and so forth, about 100 kilometers, filling 500 lakes. So it's actually now reaching out to about 64,000 farmers. So surveillance is crucial and critical to ensure the health of the farmers. After the farmers use the wastewater, it comes back as food to the city. So the chain is complete. So we have to keep track of the soil, we have to keep track of the food grains themselves, of the vegetables that come back to the city. So environmental surveillance, as it goes along, will have to understand the sewage chain and the movement of waste and nutrients and pathogens, and be on top of it with the health risk potential. The World Health Organization representative mentioned the key role WHO plays. The WHO has also come out with a fantastic tool called the Sanitation Safety Plan. It's a toolkit for managing and understanding health risks associated with wastewater. I think as we go along, in comparison with in coordination between the BBMP, BWSSB, and the Agriculture Department, if we start to create teams which use the SSP tool, it will help mitigate the risk to a large extent. So that's the way I think we should look forward.
Thank you, Vishwanath, for explaining a broader framework. And also, I must acknowledge the significant support we've all received from the leadership and from the chief engineers and the staff of BWSSB for the success of this program. Next question to the person who's been in the hot seat, Dr. Bhaskar. Dr. Bhaskar, as the chief of the COVID war room, could you please share with us how did you use some of this information, these signals, in terms of detailing the public health response?
Right. Thank you, RK, for the introduction, and just to give a small overview what COVID War Room does before we get into how we did use this data. So essentially, COVID War Room in Bangalore was one of the first ones to be established across the world. So that was done in a record time, in a couple of days' time, in March of 2020. The whole agenda of setting up the war room itself was to see how the data about COVID can be utilized to prepare ourselves better, and better policies can be established so that we prevent the spread. That was the whole idea. So as we moved on from wave 1, where we were caught unprepared, most of us were caught unprepared, towards wave 2 is when all these mechanisms were established between wave 1 and wave 2. So we realized that not necessarily only RT-PCR, not necessarily only the lab testing, but there are multiple other ways which can be used to analyze how the pandemic is spreading. So only if we analyze how the pandemic is spreading, we will be able to prevent it better. So that's the whole point of surveillance, what we wanted to drive through the war room. In this particular aspect is where we were looking for more data sources, not necessarily only one data source of tracking the TPR, tracking the death, tracking the hospitalization, which was easy to access because we were controlling most of the positive management data. Even before getting reports of anybody turning positive, is there a way to analyze and know the society is susceptible? So that's where wastewater surveillance came handy. So we were looking at early data of wastewater surveillance, I think, with minimal data which was accessible in July, August of 2020. So we are celebrating 1 year of precision health. Even prior to that, I think these were the teams which are doing for polio. They started doing it pretty early in July 2020. It was very minimal amount. So even we could not make a lot of sense of it. So we heard our chief commissioner speaking about it, where teams approached and said, this might spread through aerosol. So that was the sense what we are trying to make out of it. See, if it is spreading through aerosol, how do we prevent it much better? So it can go many places if it happens. So from there, when it went on another 6 months to 7 months, where we could actually see sequences out of wastewater, is when we started getting real data, which was qualitative and quantitative to analyze and say, okay, this is of some use and this can be made sense out of. And towards the early stages of third wave, not even early stages of third wave, but almost I think 3-4 weeks before third wave is when all of us met. When Angela actually came out and said, this is a early warning sign. We are going to see something. So I clearly remember we met in East War Room, must be. So she came and said, this is concerning. This was, I think, November. It was late November,
Gandhi,
I think.
It was Gandhi
so
Jayanti
October,
Day,
November. Yeah. So the team came up and said, we are going to see something which is going to be worrisome. We are seeing a spike in these places. And this is the graph which is coming out. So that's where we started making sense and say, okay, this seems to be concerning, but how do we utilize this data and make better policies? And we did propose to the management and we did propose to the administrators and we came up with better proposals and we saw how the third wave was managed. So that's the utility of the data which was available through wastewater surveillance put to use. So that proof is in the pudding. So we got the data which was required so that we prepare early and we could contain the spread of the disease much better as compared to the earlier waves.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bhaskar. Last, I have a question for Dr. Angela. Dr. Angela, you emphasized very appropriately and very well that how a complex program like this, at a time where even the science of wastewater epidemiology for COVID was only emerging, the criticality of coalitions and bringing everyone together. And as you know, it requires a culture change to work together. Could you, as the strategic lead from Swasti, share some insights on what made this coalition click? What is it that resulted in the success of this coalition?
Thanks, RK. This is, the Precision Health is one of the 12 innovations that we call internally as Impact Canvas, which was incubated by COVID Action Collab. So the umbrella of COVID Action Collab itself has 359 partners. So we're all very happy about our 18 partners, but that has 359 partners with 18 million service incidences in the farthest reaches of India. And COVID was a central point, and everyone, the commitment, leadership was absolutely essential. The second ingredient was give and take. If you keep giving and not taking, then it's one-sided. And then people take it for granted. And people love actually giving more than taking, which is a very critical insight that we had during collaborating, because you're always keen to give and not really expect back. And when partners started to give and take, and we tried to ensure every sector was included. So we didn't just go look at doctors or then little, sort of color around the line and say, okay, molecular biologist, okay, maybe government. We went far and wide because it's a unique problem. And everyone in there had a very unique expertise to offer. And therefore, the perspectives of everyone changed. I think the third is the willingness to listen to each other's language. And I don't mean like English, Hindi, Kannada, but I meant like the sector that we're from has a very specific lingo. And initially everyone stuck to their guns because you know how specialism is exalted in our system, but not necessarily generalism and crossing the bridge. But COVID kicked everyone in the backside and said, you know what, you can't just sit in your little corner and say you're ABC. You have to reach out. You have to understand what is required. The fourth is, I think people wanted to help the government. I think that never happened before. They do something and expect, okay, you know what, why doesn't the government see that this is an amazing innovation? It wasn't a help or a support or say, hey, what can we do? But that changed because everyone felt a moral obligation to respond to COVID. These are the big 4 points, but I think putting the people in the center is absolutely critical. As you know, I'm an advocate of equity. And if we keep the vulnerable communities right in the center, I think all the boundaries, the logos, the egos, the institutions just melt away. So I would say that's our formula.
Wonderful. Thank you, Angela. So as we conclude, before we conclude, there are a few people that personally I want to thank for whose contribution I have felt through the course of the last year. One of whom is my co-founder, Mr. Shan Venkat. I think Shan Venkat's contribution in making government talk to us work with government, and different agencies of government talk to each other has been a critical player in this success. So I really want to thank him and acknowledge his contribution. Next, someone who's been who's very quiet, but we felt his presence as a glue is Mr. Shirish. He's been the program manager for this initiative, and I want to thank you. And last but not the least, and there are many others, but someone whose brilliance I was witness to at the time of the birth of the COVID Action Collaborative is Mr. Shivkumar, the co-founder of the Catalyst Group. I must acknowledge that his presence has also been felt, and we've all learned and gained from his wisdom. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, everyone. Before you leave, can I please request you to pose with our playbooks for one photograph?
Could I invite the Chief Health Officer and the District Surveillance Officer to also please join us on the podium? Dr. Maheshwari, please join us on the stage. Yes. Dr. Shivkumar, please join us on the stage. Please, Dr. Maheshwari.
In one of our last segments of the keynote speeches, that is, we have with us Dr. Jacob John, who is a psychiatrist with experience in providing general and rehabilitative psychiatry and counseling and training in HIV. Dr. John has been the specialist psychiatrist for the government of Brunei in Bandar Serai Begawan. Dr. John Jacob is from CMC Vellore and the current vice chairperson of Swasti. So may we please have you on stage for a few words.
Good evening, everyone. It's indeed a privilege and a pleasure to stand here and say hello to you, especially after a whole afternoon of seeing what lovely things can be done when people get together. So it is my privilege as a member of the committee in Swasti to see what people have been doing, to congratulate them, and to really be humbled by the effort that has occurred. It's also frightening to think that when I pull the flush in the morning, 64,000 farmers are affected. Well, you are making it better, and all the best for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Now it's for vote of thanks. It's our pleasure to invite Dr. Nishant Hiremat, co-founder PCMH, to give a vote of thanks. Dr. Hiremat, welcome.
Thank you. I will not say that I'm going to finish this fast because I have a lot of people to thank. Honorable Shri Tushar Girinath, IAS, Chief Commissioner, BBMP. Dr. Amit Shah, Deputy Director, USAID, India Health Office. And our most valuable invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to offer thanks to each one of you involved in this journey on this occasion. Feeling gratitude and not expressing it is like wrapping a present and not giving it, by William Arthur Ward. So I would want to thank each one of you. I, Dr. Nishant Hiremat, an emergency physician, head of the department, Bhagwan Mahavir Jain Hospital, CEO and Director of PCMH Wellness and Restore Health, along with my other directors, Mr. Shan Venkat, who's not here, I'll be missing him, and Dr. RK, and Mr. Sandeep. Take this opportunity to thank the entire Precision Pandemic Health Surveillance Initiative team, and it wouldn't have been possible without the support of the sponsoring organization, USAID, Skoll Foundation, Mr. Sandeep Nelwal, and Naga Karthik. Thank you. And on a lighter note, I think we look at prevention as better than cure. Naga Karthik and Sandeep, you've been in Crypto Relief Foundation. I think prevention teaches how to buy cryptos so that we don't have to give relief to people. So thank you so much. And Smith Futures, CMS, and BCG. I should call it a fraternity of experts, without whose expertise it would have been a big zero to us. I would like to thank them from the bottom of my heart to give this journey a life and shape. Thank you, Biome Trust, TIGS, Dr. Farah, CDD, Consortium for Dissemination Society. Thank you so much to all the speakers here for completing their important work together and sharing your findings and opinions with us today. Special mention about Mr. Rakesh Singh sir, who's been an administrator in the BBMP, Principal Secretary, Water Resources, Government of Karnataka, who was there during the inception of this Precision Health and who'd been the backbone of this journey. Without him, the project would not have taken off. And I would also like to thank Mr. Shri Gaurav Gupta ji, Additional Chief Secretary of Infrastructure and Department. He was the former BBMP Commissioner who handheld the PCMH Wellness and Restore Health along with Swasti to work closely with the BBMP War Room to get the precise results in the Precision Health handle. Not to forget the support of Sri Randeep. He is also IAS officer who is presently the Health Commissioner for the Government of Karnataka and the former Special Commissioner in Health during the COVID. He has done a fantastic job during the COVID and was a major support in shaping the surveillance initiative. Dr. Trilok Chandra, IAS officer, our Special Commissioner, who has been instrumental in bringing about this initiative as well. Thanks to BWSSB for providing the map, the manpower, and the support to collect the samples. Thank you, Dr. Bal Sundar sir, the Chief Health Officer, BBMP, Dr. Suresh, our District Surveillance Officer. Thank you, Dr. Bhaskar, for everything and being with us, and Dr. Maheshwari for being an integral part of our journey. Thanks to the number of straightforward individuals from Swasti and COVID Action Collab, the Health Catalyst. Sirish, thank you so much. You've been there And I think everybody should give a round of applause. Sirish has been the main guy with bringing about a lot of changes in our precision health. Sarur sir, I think he's not here. Rohini, Ganesh, Sambiman V, Nitish, our data scientist, Ramya Gowda, Meenakshi Iyer, Sanjeev, Priya Atre. Leading from the front is, I think, Angela. Thank you so much. I think this wouldn't have been possible without you. Shama, Shiv, definitely as the backbone for all our work. Thank you, Shiv. And making this a capacity very fruitful and successful. I wouldn't want to forget the lab, our director, molecular diagnostics, Dr. Varsha. Hi. Dr. Varsha, Purva, right? I would want to mention every name who's been there every time we had to get these samples done, and they were there right on top, even with the RT-PCRs from the BBMP. Apart from that, I think the sewage samples that were going in, it was coming out in time. I think thanks to you guys. I would say Purva, Imon Roy, Sudipta, Bidipta, Aparna, Chaitra, Gautami. And obviously, I think RK and Shan have been part of the diagnostics, the molecular as well. They've also given a lot of support. Thanks to the individuals who went to the service to pick samples from sewage, open drainages, and that's only tip of the iceberg I'm mentioning. But I think without those proper samples, I think we probably wouldn't have got the real-time data. So I would want to thank Harish Avasti, Kiran, Mohan, Sachin BR, Kumar, Ravi Kumar, Timesh, Jeevan, Nandish, and Rajesh. They've collected samples every day, throughout the week, and throughout the month since the last 1 year. Thank you so much. In the end, I would want to say that don't take rest after your first victory, because if you fail in the second, more lips are waiting to say that your first victory was just luck. By Shri APJ Abdul Kalam. By saying that, I would also want to give you a sweet news that we've had the opportunity to announce that we had a meeting with the Puducherry government, and they've given us a work order to do this sewage water surveillance. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm sorry if I've missed any name, but from the bottom of my heart, I thank everybody. No. Sorry, Ganesh. I had written your name. Specifically, I wanted to mention, I don't know why I skipped it. Rohini, I mentioned. Rohini, Sarur, Ganesh. Sorry. I'm sorry about Ganesh and Rohini. Thank you so much. Sanjay, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
As we conclude this event, I'm immensely grateful to each of you for taking the time out this afternoon and spending these hours with us. It's been an enriching experience to hear about your stories and your work, and we hope to be in touch with you for our work together again.